Have you ever noticed that the loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful? It's a strange paradox, but one I've seen play out time and time again. This realization didn't come to me in a boardroom or at a fancy gala, but over a simple lunch with a man who could buy the entire restaurant and probably the whole city block without a second thought. He was dressed in a slightly wrinkled shirt, worn-out sandals, and his smile lines were etched deep into his face. We were sharing a meal, and as I sat there, I knew a quiet secret about him. He was worth hundreds of millions. Yet, he didn't talk about stock portfolios, market trends, or his latest acquisition. Instead, his eyes lit up as he described the mango tree in his backyard, how the fruit was just starting to ripen, how the birds loved to nest in its branches, spoke with a gentle, unhurried passion, completely absorbed in the simple joy of a tree he had planted years ago. There was no talk of money, no hint of the empire he commanded. Just a man, a meal, and his mangoes. In stark contrast, I had dinner with another friend just a few days later. He's younger, deeply enmeshed in the volatile world of cryptocurrency and high-risk investments. The entire evening was a relentless monologue about his portfolio's performance. He flashed his phone, showing me charts and graphs, boasting about his latest 10x return and dissecting the next big digital asset. He was animated, intense, and desperately trying to project an image of success. But as I looked closer, I saw something else in his eyes, a deep-seated exhaustion. He looked tired, almost haunted. Every word he spoke seemed to be a plea for validation, a desperate attempt to convince not just me, but himself, that he had made it. The more he talked about his gains, the more I sensed a profound emptiness behind the bravado. It was as if his entire self-worth was tethered to those fluctuating numbers on his screen, and the constant need to announce his victories was a heavy burden he couldn't set down. It was in the silence between these two encounters that a profound realization began to dawn on me. The truly wealthy, the people who possess a deep, unshakable sense of abundance. They don't talk about money, not because it's taboo, but because it's simply not the most interesting thing in their lives. Their conversations are not a performance. They need to use their bank balance as a conversational centerpiece or a tool for social climbing. They've transcended the need for external validation. Their wealth is a quiet foundation, not a loud billboard. It's a tool that grants them freedom, but it doesn't define their identity. They live simply, moving through the world with a quiet confidence that requires no announcement, no applause. They have nothing to prove to anyone, least of all to themselves. This quiet humility isn't a performance of modesty. It's the natural state of someone who is genuinely at peace. As I started to pay more attention, I began to see this pattern everywhere. I met a woman who owned a dozen rental properties across the city. She was one of the most unassuming people I'd ever known, often seen gardening in her front yard or volunteering at the local library. Her tenants adored her, not just because she was a fair landlord, but because she treated them with genuine kindness and respect. You would never guess the scale of her real estate portfolio from her modest car or the simple way she dressed. Then there was a brilliant designer I knew, whose work was sought after by major international brands. His creative genius had earned him a fortune, yet he lived in a small, minimalist apartment filled with books and art rather than ostentatious displays of wealth. He rarely used social media, and when he did, it was to share a beautiful photograph of a sunset or a passage from a poem. For him, and for so many others like him, the ultimate luxury wasn't a designer watch or a private jet. It was peace of mind. It was the freedom to live an unscrutinized life, to find joy in small, quiet moments, and to be utterly unconcerned with the fleeting opinions of the world. This lesson was solidified for me by a mentor, a wise, older woman who had guided me through some of my most challenging professional years. I was once consumed by a relentless need to prove my worth, to look successful. I was chasing promotions, obsessing over my online presence, and constantly comparing my progress to my peers. I was exhausted, just like my crypto-obsessed friend. One day, sensing my inner turmoil, my mentor sat me down and told me something I will never forget. She said, with a gentle but firm tone, if you need other people to know that you are good, it's because you don't really believe it yourself. Her words struck me like a bolt of lightning. They were so simple, yet they exposed the core of my anxiety. My frantic efforts to project success were just a reflection of my own deep-seated insecurity. That single insight became my anchor. It helped me slowly, deliberately, detach from the endless, soul-crushing cycle of comparison and validation seeking. I started to understand that true confidence is quiet. It's an internal state of being, not an external performance. Slowly but surely, as I let go of the desperate need to look successful, a remarkable thing happened. My life became calmer. The frantic energy that had once propelled me began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of grounded purpose. I stopped checking my social media feeds for likes and comments, stopped measuring my day by my productivity, and started measuring it by my sense of presence and connection. The irony was that as my ambition to appear wealthy faded, my financial situation actually improved. Opportunities seemed to find me more naturally, without the frantic chasing. Money still came, but its role in my life had fundamentally changed. It was no longer the barometer of my self-worth or the puppeteer of my emotions. It became what it was always meant to be, a resource, a tool to build a life of meaning, not the definition of that life itself. My identity was no longer tied to my net worth, and in that separation, I found a new kind of freedom. Came to understand that true freedom isn't defined by the number in your bank account, but by the stillness in your soul. It's the ability to sit in silence and feel content. It's the peace of being unhurried, of moving at your own pace, guided by your own inner compass, rather than the frantic pace of the world. It's the profound relief of being unbothered by how others perceive your success, your choices, your life. This is the real wealth that the man with the mango tree possessed. His fortune wasn't just in his assets. It was in his ability to find profound joy in a simple piece of fruit, to be fully present in a quiet conversation, to live a life so rich in meaning that he had no need to broadcast its monetary value. He was free because he was content, and that contentment was something no market crash could ever take away from him. So, here is my invitation to you, an invitation I first received from a man in worn sandals and a mentor with wise eyes. It is an invitation to redefine wealth for yourself, to live more quietly, more truthfully, without the exhausting need to prove or perform, to find your value not in what you own, but in who you are when nobody is watching. Let's dare to seek a different kind of abundance, one found in simplicity, in stillness, in the quiet confidence of a life lived authentically. Let us stop talking so much about money and start living a life that is truly rich in what matters. Perhaps then we'll all find our own mango tree, a simple source of joy so profound that it makes all other measures of success seem insignificant.